Hey guys, it's me, Saren, back with another video. So I know it's been about a week since my last video, which was a Bees Bake one. I actually got back home after my road trip last week, and this was like my first full week back, and I decided to just like take a little bit of a rest. I was extremely tired. I just completed my cross-country road trip filming season 2 of Black Americans, and so we're going to start getting into some post-production stuff to start getting the episodes up. Probably maybe not August, maybe September. I think we'll be getting those up, start rolling those out, which I'm super excited about. And I just took a little bit of time, like I said, to kind of rest and relax and sort of, get back into the swing of things after finishing my trip. But I wanted to film this video. This is on a topic I've been thinking about for a while, which I know I always say, but it's really true. So I wanted to film this quick video and kind of get you guys' sort of 2 cents on it, because I'm curious to know what people think. So my last live stream and my last set of videos was kind of on this Harriet movie, which you guys know that I am not in favor of. Something that I've seen a lot of just sort of commentary around movies and around representation in media and otherwise. There's been a lot of talk about colorism and dark skin representation. I do have a playlist on colorism. I've made several videos in the past about colorism. I will include links to all those videos in the description box. I find that something really interesting that I see coming out of the very necessary conversation about colorism, which the way that it tends to manifest worldwide, but especially, amongst Black communities, is that obviously, light is right. The closer you can get to white, the better, the more opportunities you can have. Like I said, I've done several videos on it, so I've talked in depth about school, how a lot of the times if you're lighter skinned, if you get suspended, lighter skin gets shorter sort of suspensions than darker skin. It's the same thing in the justice system, lighter skin gets longer sentences than darker skin, and things of that nature, which I've sort of gone into in detail, so I'm not going to get into that this video. Something that I do feel like I've seen that's kind of just become really interesting to me, though, is when we start having these conversations about colorism, they're sort of like intersecting with the conversations that we're having about ethnicity, because something that I saw happening with Harriet, I saw the same thing with Us, I've seen it with a lot of movies, is that, well, it's just dark skin representation, so who cares? Which I've found to be really fascinating. People saying like, well, I don't like that, Queen and Slim, they specifically put out a casting call that said they want, a 3rd, 4th generation Black American, like the casting call for Queen and Slim by Lena Waithe, which we could get into motherfucking Lena Waithe, I fucking can't stand her ass, but like the casting call for Queen and Slim specifically said that Queen is someone that is from the South, going back 3 generations in the South, got out of the South as soon as she could, moved to the East Coast, and we ended up with, I believe her name is Jodie Smith-Turner, who's Jamaican, right? So, and then Daniel Kaluuya, who's obviously not a Black American, and yet this is supposed to be filtered through this lens of this like really quintessential, again, Black American experience, this depiction of, quote unquote, Black American love. And it's very interesting to see people say like, well, I hate that, especially when it's a story that is supposed to be so rooted so deeply, in this generational experience, that even on the casting call it said, 3-4 generations, and yet, they went with a Jamaican. There's people that are saying like, well, even though I don't like it, I feel like I have to support because I want to support the dark skin representation, right? Because Jodie Smith-Turner, please correct me if that's not her name, is dark skin. So they're saying like, well, I want to support the dark skin representation, and I want to support the depiction of a dark skin romance on screen. I also talked about this briefly in my review for The First Purge, which if you guys remember, I did review. And I said that something really interesting about that sort of story was that a lot of people were saying that, well, they didn't like that the love interest, who actually was a Black American actress, was light-skinned, right? And so I feel like it's a very extremely valid critique to say that all of the time the Black representation, especially of Black women, is light-skinned and or, mixed biracial. But there's almost like this sort of catch happening, or this idea catching on of that Black Americans can't be dark skinned, there's this idea that I'm seeing, that I feel like I've been seeing it sort of formulate and really bubble over the past few years, this idea that Black Americans aren't dark-skinned, this idea that Black Americans can't be dark-skinned, and that's if we want dark-skinned representation in a film, even in a film that's marketing itself as like this sort of like quintessential, like rooted Black American experience, three generations in the United States, which again, the casting call for Queen and Slim specifically said, it's like, well, we can't get a Black American to play the role because they're all light-skinned, or they're all mixed, or, they're all biracial. There's also been some really weird sort of eugenics conversations going around about Black Americans not being really Black, right, because we are mixed. I've had a few comments left that state that. I'm going to read you guys a few of them. One second. Well, most Black people from America have white slave owner ancestry, so technically they are not Black, they're mulatto. And another one, y'all know many African Blacks don't consider American Blacks as actually Black because they have mixed with white people all these years. Again, really interesting. And so it's just this very interesting narrative that I feel like I've seen kind of like growing and formulating over time, that states that in order for us to have dark-skinned representation, we cannot sort of deal with Black Americans, with descendants of American chattel slavery. So, and I find it very interesting because, like, I think it's great that we're having these like conversations around colorism, that they're very necessary, but similar to how we're having conversations about race and racism and ethnicity, I think that there's also a nuance that is very, very interesting and just kind of I feel like I'm seeing issues being conflated. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of like, again, like, well, we want dark-skinned representation, so we have to go with a non-Black American because all Black Americans are mixed, or all Black Americans are light-skinned, or all Black Americans are biracial or mulattoes. And I think it's almost like it's almost become like a chicken and egg argument, right? It's like there's this perception of Black Americans because historically colorism has made it so that only light-skinned, biracial, or mulatto representation was shown for Black Americans. So that's sort of like influenced people into thinking that that's how we all look and that's sort of what we are. And so now it's sort of like almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, well, we can't use a Black American because they're all light-skinned or they're all this. And it's like chicken and the egg. And I feel like I've been seeing this sort of argument used, like, well, it sort of doesn't matter. I saw it a lot with Us. People love Lupita. I think Lupita's really a great actress. I always say I loved her in Queen of Katwe. But I did a video on Us where I said I thought it was very interesting that, again, Jordan Peele makes these movies where he very deliberately says he wants to talk about Black American racism and the Black American experience and then not cast any Black Americans in these roles. And there were people to say, well, I don't care because, like, I just love seeing dark-skinned representation on screen. I also love seeing dark-skinned representation on screen. But I do find it very interesting the way that issues get conflated for people's own gain and for their own beliefs, right? So also, if you already believe that all Black Americans look a certain way, act a certain way, have a certain type of culture or things of that nature, there's a confirmation bias there, and it's very easy and convenient to like use colorism as your sort of like fallback so that you don't have to like really think about a lot of what's happening in terms of representation. And I just find it to be really, really fascinating. I've been thinking about it for at least the last 6 months to a year because I feel like it's just becoming much more prevalent of like this sort of equation of dark skin representation with anything other than a Black American. You guys can tell me I'm tripping, but that's just how I feel. Let me know what you guys think. I read a really, really great article the other day that someone actually linked me, a Vulture article that was on representation. I also wrote a piece myself over at Riot that was on representation, so I'll include all those links in the description box along with my videos, my previous videos on colorism. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys feel like this is something that you've noticed? And I'm excited to see what you guys put in the comments. So hopefully this made sense. I feel like this would be a nice kind of getting back into the swing of things video. So food for thought as always. See you guys next time. I have a new light, but I feel like it's a little too bright. You guys can let me know. Is it too bright? Or would you guys have preferred this light? Because if so, I'll record it with this light for the next one. So see you guys next time. Peace.